Get those hankies out. The movie adaptation of the popular novel A Monster Calls is hitting theaters right now, and we have your review.
Life is always in the eyes. There's our monster.
Hi, I'm Dan Merle.
And I'm Roth Cornett.
And we are here to talk about J.A. Bayona's A Monster Calls, one of the year-end. I don't know if you would put this in the awards conversation. Some have, but definitely one of the three hanky movies that you often see at the end of the year.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've seen a whole series of hanky movies lately, but this is certainly one of those. The difference here is that this is, I think, the only hanky family film I've seen in the last couple of weeks.
It is. This is definitely one that is, I guess you can bring the whole family to, but get ready to explain some stuff to the kids, because if you're looking at the trailers and you think this is kind of a lighthearted romp about a boy and his monster, it is not that. This is very much a serious film that I think may be marketed as a kid's film or perceived as one because it has a monster in the title.
It's interesting because this is a family drama that I do think that will be perceived as a family film potentially because of the aesthetic of it. It's very much a magical, fantastical story of it is of a boy and his monster. However, it's far deeper than that. It deals with life and death and grief and kind of the stories that we tell ourselves to make sense of our own lives. And I feel like you start doing that when you're a little kid to some degree. You start making up stories in your mind to make sense of your reality. But we continue to do that even as adults, and this movie touches on that.
It does, and I think that it's really anchored by Louis McDougall, who plays Connor, the young boy who's the lead of the film. A great performance, I think, from a young actor.
And then Liam Neeson voices the monster quite beautifully, actually. And Felicity Jones gives a beautiful performance as Mum, as does Sigourney Weaver as Grandma. And here's what's interesting to us, or I won't speak for you. Here's what's interesting for me. The characters are listed as Mum, Grandma, Dad is Toby Kebbell.
Yeah.
Everything in this film is from this boy's perspective. We think about classic family films like, say, E.T., where it's all from pretty much Elliot's perspective. It's his vision of the world. This is the same thing, but it's asking a child to step into and understand a very adult situation, both within the context of the film, and a child who was watching it would be asked to do the same thing.
Definitely. I think if you're a kid watching this movie, you are being asked to question, why is Connor doing some of these things? There's a moment near the middle of the film where the monster's with him and he's telling him a story, and something happens inside of the story, and then you cut to the real world and you see the effects of what's just happened inside that story, and it's a shocking moment because you realize, wow, this just got escalated another step. And it is, a lot of this movie is the interplay between Connor, the monster, what the monster represents. Is it real? Is it not real? There's so much to kind of unwind with this story, but not in a complex way that I think that a younger audience is going to get lost. But when we say younger, I would not bring a 3 or 4 or 5-year-old kid to this. This is a movie maybe 10 and up, because there's some really complex stuff that you're going to need to grapple with. And this movie does not pull its punches.
Yeah, I would say this. It's not even just the subject matter, which is a little bit heady for a child.
Yeah.
But it's asking through 3 allegories, 3 stories that the monster tells, both the children and the adults to look at life and humanity in a very nuanced way, right? Things aren't black and white. People aren't just good or bad. And the truth is, developmentally, that's actually not appropriate for certain ages, because there's a reason that your parents are your gods when you're a child. And there's a reason that you view the world sort of in a more structured black and white way when you're growing up. And then as you age and as you develop, you look at it in a more complex way. So some of the criticisms that I've seen of this film have been that, okay, is this too adult for really a little kid, but maybe too fantastical for adults? I don't think so. I think if you hit the right kid at about 10 or 11, it's perfect for them. And as they age, they can come back to it and take more and more away. What do you think?
I agree. I think that, as you said, this whole thing is really told from the perspective of Connor. And there are a few times in the film where things happen and he says, well, am I going to get punished? Are you going to punish me? And the adults all say, well, what would be the point of doing that?
Yeah.
And it just shows you how his mentality is that of a child. It's you do something wrong, you get punishment. And it's not this more nuanced thing of, well, you have to weigh a situation. You have to weigh the circumstances of a situation. You have to weigh where people are standing in their life. And that's kind of what this movie is about at its core. It's the discovery, almost a coming of age film in a very strange way, of how a child learns how the world actually works. It's not black and white. It's not good and bad. It's not sad and happy, or this is a terrible thing and this is a great thing. It's that mixture. In a weird way, it reminded me of Inside Out, and that it's kind of preaching the story of things can be two different things simultaneously, and that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that one of the more interesting lessons of the film, and the biggest lesson of the film, is that you yourself have to reconcile with your own darkness, your own dark thoughts, your own conflicted feelings about something that is very painful for you. We have a perception that there's one way that we should sort of grapple with the things that are happening in our life, a good way to do it. And if we don't do it that way, we are bad people. Connor is faced with that in this, which is, again, a complex idea for a kid to grapple with. But I also think it's an important one, and I think that sometimes we don't give kids enough credit. Yeah. I am a huge fantasy fairy tale fan, so I loved this, and I would say that also a film that I love that's quite different as a kid is The Dark Crystal, and that's one that I kept coming back to and getting more and more from. You know, I kind of got the broad strokes when I was young, and then it got richer and richer for me as I aged. I think this is one of those films, and I think that's actually pretty exciting.
This is a film that I enjoyed. I don't know if this would be one that I would put on my top 10 list. I feel like it does not play its emotions subtly, and it is very upfront about its intentions and how it wants you to feel. And sometimes I felt it was a little too upfront and a little almost too much. But I liked the themes of it. I liked the performances in it are really very strong. I feel like, and this is not the movie's fault because the design for this monster predates Guardians, but the monster is very Groot. Liam Neeson's voice is a little Grootish. It looks like Groot. But that being said, I love Liam Neeson's performance. There are a little kind of hints about what the origin of that could be, and that's what I also loved, is that this movie did not over-explain. It didn't give you the exact origin of the monster. It didn't give you the exact origin of how and why. That's one thing I did like, that it did underplay. So this is a solid film. It's one that I enjoyed.
I felt that tonally, every once in a while, so I'm trying to manage a lot at once.
It is.
And it gets a little disjointed here and there, but it is very well executed, excellent performances, as you say, and it is tackling big themes that I think are important for kids, and I think it's an interesting film for us to have right now.
So Roth, I think safe to say a recommendation from both of us?
Yeah.
There you go. That's our review of A Monster Calls. It's hitting theaters soon, and next week we've got a big one. The Force will be with us as we talk about Rogue One, a Star Wars story. I think a few people might be interested in that one.
Yeah, I think so. I have some high hopes on that one.
I do too. We'll see how it turns out. Until then, I'm Dan Merle.
I'm Roth Cornett.
We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching Screen Junkies News. You can click, select, tap, whatever you want. The box is on screen to watch even more Screen Junkies News, and don't forget to click the logo to subscribe.